Actually, what we had in mind is to have some fireworks, but the security did not allow. So we decided to change a little bit the way that we present the topic, and the topic is education of law and Holocaust. But being the last panel, I cannot overlook what we heard before, especially in the last panel of the Honorable Qadi I'll find out the name, Muhammad Abu Ubaid. Thank you for saying it. We forgot that we are a real minority. We are trying to say, well, we are a minority, but let's behave like Muslims. Let's be with them. Okay, let's be together. However, he really explained why we need to teach Holocaust, because we are such a minority. The other person, which I would like to relate to what he said, is Judge Rubinstein. In the beginning of his lecture, he gave us a few dates. That happened in November, that happened in November. I forgot what are the dates, but I do remember that we are 80 years after the end of World War II. This panel will concentrate on teaching the Holocaust, but from a different point of view. I won't ask the guys, what do you think? I will start with asking the guys, why are you teaching Holocaust? Or why you are involving Holocaust in your teaching? And why why do you think it's so important, and how, and maybe we have time, how will we encourage teaching of the Holocaust? Why am I asking those questions? Because there is what I call a Holocaust fatigue. There are explanations. That happened 80 years ago. Forget about it. We had 7th of October. And I speak about Israel mainly. Who needs now to learn about Holocaust? Look what happened. We had the second Holocaust. For Holocaust, we have memories. We have Holocaust museums. Dina can speak about the museum. Susan can speak about memories and teaching and so on. Who needs to do it? There are also Holocaust deniers. There are reasons to show you why there is no Holocaust. That's why it is important to show that teaching Holocaust is it's not something which is intimidating. You can use it from various different points of view, and those will be our lectures. It won't be a real panel, it will be lectures by the two beacons ladies that are sitting, the beacon of Holocaust and anti-Semitism teaching in Israel, and the beacon of Holocaust teaching in Australia. I cannot say that you are the beacon, but I'll say that you are the dean of the law faculty. But Leo has something special. He teaches something, I won't say that it's boring. I mean, patent, and no, it's not boring. But it's very far away from Holocaust teaching, and it's still, you will see, an unbelievable way of teaching Holocaust. But I would like to give the mic to the panelists for personal reasons. I want them to tell you why are they involved in this horrific, interesting, but in this subject which is not the regular one. Dina Porat. Okay. I'm already stealing something. Dina Porat, as I mentioned, she's the beacon of. When you speak about teaching Holocaust, when you speak about anti-Semitism in Israel, from the point of view of teaching, you are immediately saying Dina Porat. Not just the mother of Roy Porat that shouted him, please speak loudly, but she is really. I mean, this is a household name in everybody in the academy. And except on top of what was said about her, I want to mention that she recently received the Israeli President Prize for specific contribution to the state of Israel. Now, Dina, why are you teaching? Why are you teaching Holocaust?
Thank you for the question and the introduction, though I will answer one point of what you have said later. If you're asking me on the personal level, we are not a family of survivors. My parents came from Eastern Europe to Argentina in the late 1920s, beginning of the 1930s, so we are not a family of survivors. But there were two instances that happened in Argentina in my childhood that I think had an impact on me later. When I was about 5 or 6 years old and could already see letters, I saw on the building, on our building in Once, in the Jewish neighborhood, it said letters that I could read, Mate Judíos, kill Jews, with an exclamation mark. So I came running home and I said, Tapenu, vos is dos. And my father, as he always used to, spoke straightly and said, this means killing Jews, and we are Jews. It says in the imperative, kill Jews, and we are Jews. But please always remember, the Jews, we are okay. We are fine. We did nothing to deserve it. Those who are not okay are them. They have problems and suspicions and fears that lead them to this. And when I started and continued to study anti-Semitism, I always remember that the problem lies in societies, individuals that have the fears, the suspicions, the problems, the need to find someone to blame. That's it. The second point, shortly, is that my father was a major leader in Latin America and in Argentina. The house was always open, a warm house, the door was open. I spent most of my childhood and youth not in my bed because there was always someone more needy and I had some mattress or something. And refugees, survivors started coming and they had nowhere to go. And then when they came, and they stayed with us something days and weeks. And I was a small, the same age, 5, 6, and I could hear them speaking in Yiddish, my first language, telling the stories, painful stories, singing. One of my first songs I know is the Partisan's Hymn. Okay? That will
be the end of the session.
And I had this, they gave me the feeling of the need to listen to study what happened. And my father's home gave me the feeling of responsibility to study Jewish history, to know Jewish history, to understand that there is nothing more important than to be a Jew responsible for his Judaism.
The second person that I want her to introduce her private reason why she's taking law on the Holocaust. Oh, not law, sorry. She's the only normal person here. She's not a lawyer. She's a historian. I have to say it loudly. Oh, you also. I mean, not a lawyer. Oh, well, now you understand why they are beacons. When you hear what Susan is doing recently in Australia, which is really something unbelievable, you will understand why I'm saying she's a beacon in Australia, but I will start with the personal items. Susan, why are you handling this matter?
Thank you. Well, I do have a survivor background, but not from my parents. My parents came to Australia in January 1939 due to the vision of my late mother. My parents were in Antwerp. My father had a thriving diamond business. And Mum saw what what was going to happen. My father didn't want to leave. She had 2 brothers already in Sydney. And she saved my family. My older brother, Aviv, was born in 1936 in Antwerp. So I grew up with what I call the silence. The Holocaust was always there because my parents brought out almost every Holocaust survivor from the family, except on my mother's side of the family. For those who remained in Europe, there was one survivor, and she ended up in London, in the UK. It was my father's side. And the Holocaust was there, but I only learned in 1997, 98, when I went to do a course at Yad Vashem, that 2 of my uncles were saved by Oskar Schindler. Why did I start teaching the Holocaust? Do you know, it was there. And I started as a young teacher at a non-Jewish government school in Sydney's western suburbs. And I was a history teacher for our matriculation. And one of our readings, and it stays with me till today, is on Hitler's writings from Mein Kampf on propaganda. And so because I was Jewish, the Holocaust wasn't it was World War II. But I guess I started teaching it because of that background. And when I read those readings that I had to do with my students, number 1, the bigger the lie, the better. Number 2, appeal to the lowest common denominator, right? Hitler's propaganda. And then I spoke to my non-Jewish students, and that started me. And then, just briefly, I started the very first modern Jewish history course in Australia in 1976. I was the first person in Australia to teach the Holocaust in a Jewish day school. And it was tough because no one was speaking. I'll stop there.
You stop it, and then you have the chance, to give your lecture. The last panelist was not chosen just because he's the most handsome law deacon. No, really. But really, Leo Zemmer is the dean of the law faculty in Reichman University. Leo, well, his curriculum vitae, like everybody's curriculum vitae, is in the pamphlet. But I have to tell you about Leo. Gave his soul, his heart, and I guess also his body, in the last 2 years, to help soldiers, to help wounded guys, and whoever wanted to register in the Reichman University, and help a lot even today with all the evacuees from mainly the south, I think, that some of them found them houses in Reichman University. So Leo was really in the last 2 years, well, to use again the word beacon, no, but really the light in the law faculty in Reichman University for whatever are the consequences of the October 2nd. Tell me, this will be the last personal presentation, then you go to your lectures. Why are you teaching, why are you including Holocaust in your studies?
First of all, thank you, Rachel, for these lovely words. And thank you for supporting what they do, and thank you for being such a great friend. And Rachel is a true friend. Now, when it comes to Holocaust and myself, I couldn't escape it. All my grandparents survived 1, 2, 3 camps. It was there. I mean, you wake up in the morning and you see your grandmother, or you go for Shabbat to your grandfather, and the Holocaust is there. It is part of your food. It's not the dessert, it's the main course. And I have to admit, my grandparents, as opposed to many others, never recovered. They are not alive anymore, they passed away, but none of them truly recovered. So it did affect life at home, life with my parents who had to take care of them. So from a personal point of view, and I'll tell you more about my own journey to teach Holocaust and my personal journey when I'll give you the talk. So besides the personal journey, I think it's a national concern. I think in Israel, the Holocaust does not receive adequate attention. And third, the global effects. I think, globally speaking, teaching Holocaust, relating to the aftermath of Holocaust, understanding the causes, the reasons, and the responsibilities of the Holocaust are almost non-existent. I know we have great professors around the world, but outside of Israel and outside of certain other places, it is almost non-existent. It is as bad as that, and I think we have a joint commitment to change this reality.
Thank you, Leo. And here we are continuing not as a panel. Dina will give her lecture, Susan will give her lecture, and Leo maybe will bring some of the fireworks. But he will give his lecture together with the firework. So I know it's late. I know everybody wants to go to the hotel. Guys, I promise it will be worthwhile. Dina, please.
Thank you. Well, now she forced me to deliver. Okay. The topic of my presentation is the legal and illegal aspects of revenge. A bit before the end of World War II and right after it ended, a group of 50 youngsters, most of them partisans, ghetto fighters, escapees from death marches or camps, decided, under the leadership of the charismatic poet and commander Abba Kovner, to kill 6 million Germans by pouring poison into the water systems of a number of German cities. Their idea was to have revenge openly, known to everyone, known all over the world, not just as a punishment, not just retaliation, but also as a warning against any thought to harm the Jewish people again. The question I would like to address is revenge always contradicting the law? Of course, revenge is taking the law in one's hands, being the judge and the executor of the verdict. But are there any circumstances in which revenge may be understood, justified, or even legalized? The three major sources of Western civilization, the Bible, the New Testament, and the Greek mythology, refer to this question, acknowledging the fact that revenge is a basic individual human emotion. Chapter 4 in Genesis, the killing of Abel by Cain and revenge that would be taken on Cain, revenge is already there. What does the Bible say? The Bible says that on the personal level, killing a person who committed murder is not only allowed, but is an obligation. It says, Geulat Dam. It has been translated into redemption of blood by a kinsman. But the Bible doesn't say revenge, it says Geulat Dam. Like the redemption of blood. But, please pay attention to this, it allows and commands this obligation on the condition that revenge is being done with proportion, not with an outburst of violence, cruelty, unnecessary deeds. Let's remember that. Then, what about the national level? We are a weak and small nation. On the national level, revenge is in his hands. Li nakam v'shilem. Compensation, recompensation, and revenge are mine. And we always say, we keep saying until today, Hashem yikom damo. He will take revenge. And so revenge, nationally speaking, is in the hands of God, not of men, unless God commands it. God orders individuals, leaders, like Moses before he dies. God says, you should take revenge on the Midianites, and then you can die and be properly buried. So we were commanded to take revenge on the Midianites, the Amalekites, and Amorites, and by God. Okay, the New Testament says more or less the same. Revenge is up to God. Individuals should harbor love and empathy. Aristotle, writing following the great Greek dramaturgist, writing the great plays a century before him, wrote in his book Etica that revenge, I was really surprised, I must tell you to read it, that revenge may be not only justified, but be morally approved if it is a means to restore social order. Okay? And again, done proportionately, not with an outburst, not with cruel emotions. Then if you go on, Francis Bacon, and Aristo not only wrote that, but he called revenge corrective revenge. Francis Bacon said, wild justice. Again, if it restores social order, if it comes instead of where society fails. I could go on and on. In research, the books are few. You wouldn't believe how few the books dealing with revenge are, because revenge is, not a very sympathetic emotion, should not be encouraged. As my mother used to say, "Fair ist passt nicht." It is not appropriate. And dealing with revenge in research is very scarce. But in the books that do, again, the authors are looking for legalized revenge or the righteous avenger. Because again, if society fails to punish and to restore public order, then revenge should indeed be considered as a right act. Let us go back to our group. The group, these 50 youngsters looked around after the Holocaust and asked themselves a question, many questions, saying, let's say that the Holocaust would be punished. Who would the judges be? Who would appoint the judges? The judges will not be Jews. If they are not Jews, they would not know the Jewish experience. According to which laws? What has been done is unprecedented. The laws refer to former times and former crimes. So justice is not about to be shown or done, and our revenge is right in place. Moreover, they looked around and saw that anti-Semitism, rampant murderous anti-Semitism is still there after the war. It started in Eastern Europe before, when people came home to see if there is a home or anyone survived, but the home was already taken, all the property was taken, so the Jews who came back were killed. By the hundreds, only in Poland, between 1,000 and 1,500. And in other places as well. So, rampant anti-Semitism, no one to turn to. No law, no judge, no one. Second, the Allies, who had tens and tens of thousands of SS men, the Allgemeine SS, numbered, as we know, 1.25 million, they had camps filled with them. After a while saw what a financial burden it is, how much manpower is needed. Open the gates, go home. Not only that, the Morgenthau plan to re-educate Germany, to punish it, was replaced by the Marshall Plan, which meant rebuilding Germany. Why rebuilding? Because the Cold War was at the gate, and the West needed Germany as a barrier against the Soviet Union, so it should be rebuilt and not punished. No. So where is punishment for the Holocaust? In November 1945, the Nuremberg trials began. The Avengers had a group in Nuremberg looking for the water system, waiting for the poison, and they saw the trial beginning. They watched it almost daily, but the Holocaust was not an issue in the Nuremberg trials. We didn't have a state, so we didn't have a representative. The Holocaust was not a specific crime mentioned in the trials to be punished for. Many arguments, formal arguments, were given for that. But the real argument was that every one of the parties was guilty. This didn't rescue, this one didn't bomb, this one's killed, everyone enjoyed the property. The Holocaust was avoided. And the trial took a year, a long year. It was clear that that no punishment is coming. Moreover, Jewish scholars were those who termed the basic terms needed for the Nuremberg trials. Hersch Lauterpacht offered crimes against humanity. Trialing, Aaron Trialing, crimes against peace and war crimes. Robinson, general conspiracy to perform all these crimes. And Raphael Lemkin offered genocide. Genocide was not a term used by the court in Nuremberg, because genocide means Holocaust, and the Holocaust was to be avoided. But the other terms were basic. So, Jewish contribution to the court was enormous, but it didn't help bring the Holocaust as an issue. So, the German nation was not punished. Most of it just went home. The upper echelons, a few hundreds, went to hid in South America, in Arab countries. They were not punished. They paid, but they were never punished for the Holocaust. The Jewish people did not take revenge, because our group, they almost did it. I know firsthand where they had the poison from. They were given the poison by the brothers Aaron and Ephraim Kachalsky, later Katzir. I interviewed the fourth president of Israel, Ephraim Katzir. They gave Abba Kovner quite a quantity of poison, but it was lost. Then they had another poison, but the Zionist leadership in the land of Israel did not allow it. Perhaps the revenge was justified because society, the allies, the international institution failed to punish for the Holocaust. Perhaps it could be in proportion, because 646. But killing 6 million? I knew them, most of them personally. I befriended them. I visited their homes. And I always said, Kinderlach, das ist nicht tiefer Gedanke. This is not such a good idea. And they always said, had you been there with us, you would have done it with us. But the Zionist leadership did not allow it. Ben-Gurion did not allow it. It was morally wrong, he said, historically wrong. We should look forward and not backward. He said, if 6 million dead Germans would bring me to life my 6 million Jews, if not, I'm not interested. When Ben-Gurion was not interested, nothing happened. And so, here our story ends. The German nation was not punished. The Jewish nation did not take revenge. And I would say that it is to the credit, to the greatness of the Jewish people that they did not take revenge. Thank you.
Only Dina can sit down 20 minutes without PowerPoint and speak like this. What?
I'm the PowerPoint.
You are the PowerPoint. Well, you've seen how revenge can be a legal term. Now we'll see how another historian is acting in the court.
Thank you. I'm going to start just with a brief personal story, but before I do start, I do want to thank Qadi Mohammed Abu Abeid for his words, sincerely from my heart. And I'm going to start with a story that does include Muslim anti-Semitism, but I know there's also people like Muslims like you, some of whom are my friends and who are amazing. So I was teaching a course in the Australian Jewish experience, and I had non-Jewish, most of my students this was a graduate course, a master's course, and non-Jewish students, one of whom was a high school teacher of the Holocaust. And I'm going to be, in the next 7 minutes or so, just talking about young people, high school, and Holocaust education. Greg Keith had done courses at Vashem. He was teaching in a Catholic school with a very mixed population, a girls' school, including quite a lot of Muslim students. And I had done research because I was sending groups of teachers to Yad Vashem to study. And when I asked, why do you want to do this course, and most were not Jewish, some of those teachers spoke about the Muslim anti-Semitism in their schools. And so I started to research that. I wrote later in 2009, published an article on it, and in Prospects, UNESCO publication. And Greg Keith strongly rejected and criticized what I was saying in my class. And, not very often does a student, he was a more mature age student, but still, say to his or her lecturer, you are wrong. I'm going to show you how both of us were wrong, but I'll get to that. Before I do that, Greg then decided to study for his PhD, Holocaust education in New South Wales. And he, in the end, interviewed 75 teachers through, and they were quite in-depth. It was online interview, but 75 teachers responded through the History Teachers Association with detailed responses. And he found through his research, he only asked for postcodes of students, that approximately 1/3 of the teachers, when asking about the major challenges they are facing when they teach the Holocaust, 1/3 mentioned anti-Semitism. So, what is happening with anti-Semitism and our schools? Here comes the law. Because I was an expert witness for a major case with Brighton Secondary College, a government school in Melbourne, where between 2013 and 2020, 5 boys, and it's different time, obviously different times at the school, but with Mr. Minnick, who was first deputy principal and then principal at the school for that whole time period, where they're reporting on anti-Semitism, and that case came to court, and I was the expert witness for it. And I really don't have much time, but talking about the challenges and what Greg was discovering with his research, the challenges. Teaching the Holocaust is not the magic bullet that people want it to be. And I want to read to you, not a PowerPoint, and I'm sorry I'm reading to you, but I need to read to you the words, because this is a conference from law. Shall I just go on? These are the words of Chief Justice Mortimer, Chief Justice in Victoria.
This is an invitation to a meeting for a broad audience about some of the tomorrow collection. So they meet in a different room, and the invitation is for the people in the exhibition. So don't worry about it.
So we don't have to go.
You don't.
We
This
can
is
stay.
Polish.
And we can allow us to do different things. Yeah, okay.
So at the school, Mouse was taught, I think, presume everyone in the audience, or most of you, have you heard of Mouse by Art Spiegelman? His family, by the way, also migrated to Australia, and one of our leading Chief Justices was also from the Spiegelman family. And so Mouse was taught, it's a cartoon book, of course. I'm going to read you some of the words and some of the evidence from the students. So this is Justice Mortimer summing up about the anti-Semitic abuse that Jewish students experienced at Brighton with the teaching of Mouse. And she's describing one of the students, his name Joel, actually the case was Kaplan et al., Joel Kaplan. The anti-Semitic, these are her words, the anti-Semitic abuse for Joel majorly intensified in his year 9, about 400%, when his class was taught Mouse by Art Spiegelman, a cartoon book about the Holocaust. It traces the journey of Spiegelman in a death camp that he survived, and so on. The cartoon book and the school's approach to teaching the Holocaust was negligent. And Justice Mortimer found for the boys of negligence in duty of care. I urge you all to look at her judgment. It is 460 pages, but the sections I'm reading, and I'm dealing with lawyers, runs from approximately paragraph 887, and I've learned writing expert reports as a historian, we don't use paragraphs. My expert reports, I had to learn how to do them. So approximately for about 5 points after 887, and just to finish off a few more words, as she sums up, the applicants are correct that there was little evidence of any specific steps taken ahead of the teaching of Mouse to try and contextualize the text for students, to sensitize them to the very effects the text might have on Jewish students, or to keep a closer eye on Jewish students, right? She said Mouse illustrates how little evidence could be produced to demonstrate any systematic and considered approach to BSc staff to these matters, and certainly no leadership from Mr. Minner, who was the principal and who, by the way, initially would not resign but was forced to resign. So coming back, and just before I finish, and Ido spoke about morality, right? This school, everywhere was the rainbow. If you were gay, and Mortimer points to this difference between the way gay and LBQTI plus were dealt with compared to the Jewish kids, right? And I assure you with Islamophobia, it would have been the same. But coming back to Greg Keith, he very much changed his mind, he changed my mind. But talking about the combination, he found that in Sydney, southwest Sydney, Western Sydney, where there's a large Muslim population, there were issues. But go to the northern suburbs, the upper class, and you had that traditional British anti-Semitism, and he even found in one school where there were a lot of students with Croatian background that the Ustashi mentality was still operating. And how do we meet this challenge? I'll finish with his recommendations. Teaching the Holocaust is not a magic bullet to anti-Semitism. If you want to include anti-Semitism, the Brighton legal case shows this. The boys got $500,000 between them, $500,000 compensation, and the Victorian Government Department had to apologise publicly. You need strong leadership from the school. We must get principals to understand. We need professional development. You can't just say to the teacher, it's compulsory to teach Holocaust, if they don't know how to teach it. And we need to understand that there need to be other approaches to counter anti-Semitism, but that when you teach Holocaust, yes, it's important to teach human rights and the more general lessons of the Holocaust, but don't neglect anti-Semitism. And finally, Greg found a gender difference, that all the schools that reported on anti-Semitism were either just for boys or they were co-ed. No reports from a girls' school. Remember my debate with Greg at the start? He was teaching in a girls' school. Just one more point that's very interesting about the gender issue, that research does show that girls tend to be less traditionally anti-Semitic and more empathetic, and Greg found that with empathy. Come to anti-Israel, or the tragic, for me, what's going on with the Israel-Palestine conflict, you see the young women in the front of the protest. Why? Because girls and women are more empathetic. And so they catch up, the young women catch up with the young men. Thank you.
Our last lecture, which will show us how you can teach Holocaust, but not saying I'm teaching Holocaust. Is this a PowerPoint? So maybe we will go down in order to be able to...
You're more than welcome to go down.
Okay.
I'm not going to dance or sing,
Okay.
but I'm
Go
definitely...
down, we don't dance.
Few things at the outset of my talk. First of all, it is a very rare moment for me to be and lecture about it here. Although the talk has been modified. It is normally 60, 70 minutes, and I was allowed 20, which means I strongly suggest you fasten your seatbelts, because I would like to give you more than just the gist of my arguments. So I am very touched and quite emotional when it comes to this talk. It is in loving memory of so many people I never met. We are a very small family with roots in Germany, Austria, Poland, and the Balkans. You see the mix. And my father emigrated to Israel in the 60s. My grandmother, after surviving the camps, met my grandfather in the Kielce pogrom, and they moved to Wrocław, where my father was born. So for him and for us, Poland is a home. It's not a place where things happened or a place where you need to reconcile with the atmosphere. It is honestly a home. My talk is about ghetto intellectual property. No research has ever been done on the topic of intellectual property within concentration camps. And in a moment, you'll see that there was a vibrant IP scene in these most horrible of places. I do not examine looted art. I examine only creative and innovative works created within concentration camps. Because I am getting emotional, I learned that if I have music accompanying my talk and some words coming into the presentation, I can stand it. So I traveled the world, but for you, you have a very modified version, but I promise you new stuff. This is a topic that has never ever been discussed in legal academia, and I started it in 2000 when the last of my grandparents passed away. She told me, Leo, why are you so sad when it comes to us? We had orchestras, we had operas, we had classes, we had newspapers. It wasn't as bad as you think. And I was doing my baby steps in Oxford, researching IP, and for me these sentences were so meaningful. She passed away, and she didn't share enough. None of my grandparents shared enough. But I think my DNA has so many gene sequences with Holocaust because of the way I was brought up. This talk is always dedicated to two of my students who were killed in the recent war. Both of them, fourth generation Holocaust survivors. One of them is Dor Zimmer. His organs were transplanted in 7 people. He was about to get married. His family came from Romania. And the second is David Schwartz. He was married, and his family comes from Germany and from certain places not far from here. This is my manifesto as third generation of survivors from Auschwitz, Bergen-Belsen, and many other places. I will divide my talk into copyright and patents and data, and just to make a general statement, IP deals with copyright, patents, and trademarks. I will focus on the first two. Before I start, I would really like to thank the organizers of this conference for inviting me, for the great people who did so much to make this a wonderful event, to the great friends here, to Sharon, to Alexandra, and to a really close friend, Rachel. I'll give you a few examples. I will talk through examples, and I need to look at the clock because I can easily take you until Shabbat with this talk. Dina Gottliebova-Paditz painted 11 portraits of gypsies by order from the Angel of Death, Mengele, in Auschwitz. When she was released, she moved to America and she tried to get hold of these 11 portraits with no success. Even President Bush tried to help her. No success. Recently, a claim was made by the museum that she doesn't own the works because they were made under the course of employment. These are works made for hire. The Vilna ghetto was very famous for its shows and for plays, and all were invited. And just to make it clear, I mean, portraits, theatrical productions, all of these are protected by copyright law. This is a rare photo of one of the most famous orchestras, the Women Orchestra from Auschwitz.
We had a job to do with Marxist.
You can raise the voice. Anita Lasker-Wolfish, remember her name. She'll reappear in this talk at least 3 times. Anita Lasker-Wolfish lives in London. She survived Bergen-Belsen and Auschwitz. She was the cellist of the Women Orchestra.
Coming back then went out usually. That was our
on July 25, 2020. July 15, 2025, she celebrated her 100th birthday. We visited her when she was only 99.
We went back to the block.
All this has happened in the worst place on earth. I'll go fast on this because I'm sure you all have the visions in your head. But the inhuman scene was so drastic and so traumatic and so impossible that creative personalities allowed people to remain alive. In this inhuman, the most human sides of people came to life. Some were never artists or musicians or had creative personality. So the human side or the human part of their personality came to life. I'll give you more examples from art. Berlin was in a concentration camp in France. He didn't have paints, he didn't have paper, so he drew the entrance to the camp on scraps of eggshells. This is a work of art protected by copyright law and was sold in Jerusalem in an auction house for the bidding price of $8,000. The person who bought it can destroy it, resell it, not allow us to see it. Not many artists are alive. Yehuda Khan, he's 96, he lives in Jerusalem. His paintings from Auschwitz were never found. He's a lovely man. We used to talk over the phone and he could speak over the phone. And he paints only his memories. A few years ago, I visited Block 27. And there was an exhibition by Michal Ovner. She's very famous. She's a fantastic curator, an artist. She added color to the black and white sketches made by kids in Auschwitz. I immediately thought, kids see black and white, or kids see colored paintings. What made them feel the true reality that was at the camp? Obviously black and white. But then I realized, if you want to connect the kids, you should add some color. Can we really add color? Do we violate any rights in these works? Artistic works are still being found. In 2024, camp chess pieces were discovered at Block 8 in Auschwitz. This is a work of art. Music was everywhere. I'm serious. Everywhere. I know it from my own family that it was everywhere in certain camps. But there were also special songs for kids, like Stille, Stille, that used to make them calm, that realized the reality in the camp. All these works were used in films, not only documentary, and were performed by various artists. Anita Lasker-Wolfish, this is the second time in town. As the cellist of Auschwitz, she performed and played not only known pieces, but they created new works of music specifically for Auschwitz. They used to play outside the crematorium. Pavel Haas, remember this guy. He's very important for me. He's a Jewish composer from the Czech Republic, whose pieces were found also in the Czech Republic. He was famous, but also in Auschwitz. In 1944, he died, he was murdered in Auschwitz. Remember Pavel Haas. Now, this is one of the heart of my arguments. I have no idea how many of you know Francesco Lautaro, but Francesco Lautaro is an Italian composer who managed to put his hand on so many pieces of musical items created in concentration camps and ghettos, and performs them with symphonies around the world. He made it his life mission to revive Holocaust music. Well, it is a question. Who can revive Holocaust music? Who owns Holocaust music? Theaters, not only in Theresen and Auschwitz, theaters were in many camps, in many ghettos. This is a family I met in person. They lived in Haifa, the Ovitz family. Lilliput Theater in Auschwitz used to entertain the Nazis. All the 7 dwarfs survived Auschwitz. All of them. Not before they went through Mengelé's experience. Now, obviously, the most obvious of examples would be literature, would be diaries by Anne Frank, but there are plenty more diaries. Dozens and dozens and hundreds of diaries have been found. Obviously, letters, literary works that are protected by copyright law are abundant. Now, sometimes the human and the inhuman were played together. For example, when someone was on his way to the gas chamber and musical group, band, was accompanying him. This is the orchestra in Auschwitz performing behind the crematorium. What I show you until now was a copyright scene from hell. But there is a legal argument that I'm trying to spread around. Not only that these works are protected intellectual properties, but who owns them? Who's the physical owner? A state, an organization, an institution? Who owns them? These works are protected by local and international laws of copyright, like the Berne Convention from 1886, and by all modern copyright acts. There are several doctrinal remedies like fair use, orphan works, the duration of copyright. All these are important if we had 70 minutes. But I know I need to dash a bit. So we'll skip this and I'll get to this. I argue that the Shoah stands alone. It's not just a genocide, it is the Shoah. And if there are any rights related to creative commodities produced or created within concentration camps, they deserve a sui generis law, a particular unique law. These laws must allow access for next generations. They cannot be held in shelters or in museums. There must be limits to the methods of use that can ensure authenticity and allow illegitimate owners to be traced. So a few examples. Obviously, the story of Eva, the story of Aviv. All of you, I'm sure, saw this.
Hi, my name's Eva. Welcome to my page. Follow me.
She smiles. The video clip has colors, but researchers found that more youngsters can now relate to Holocaust because they see it through modern eyes. On September 2022, I was here. Well, I'm here twice a year. And that was at the center of Warsaw. These are paintings made by kids in concentration camps next to paintings made by kids in Ukraine. Some were vandalized, some were mocked, some were colored. It's a question. Who can use these works? These are protected copyrighted works. Shall we add color? And what about artificial intelligence? AI assists survivors to find photos they never had. Even a single photo couldn't find for this survivor from Canada. But what about displaying information and works? How can you really make it authentic? The message and meaning of works must be authentic.
This gift saved our lives. We will need this like
That's
this
what I'm trying to do. I want
This
you to
survivor
remember the moment
Okay.
when
Next
they
to the computer
Felix, this one will see.
experts, and they chose the right color.
The upper to the right think it's a happy end because they found it and were saved.
1 second, I'll let him take care of the presentation. for us Israelis, to hear the voices coming from here and there, someone running, I'm sure it made us feel, okay, do we need to go to a shelter or somewhere? But, oh, it's okay now, I think. Yes, it is okay, thank you. The main question is ownership. I claim that works created during the Holocaust in concentration camps and ghettos, and I depart my arguments from looted art or from works made by Jewish artists before the war. Only works created within concentration camps and ghettos are part of Jewish traditional knowledge. Traditional knowledge is an expression coined in the past decades. It creates protection, it provides protection for works that represent particular creative expressions of communities, of nations, like Aboriginals, like Maoris, like the Samis in northern Scandinavian states, and also other communities. And I argue that what happened in the Holocaust is part of our common heritage. It is part of our body of knowledge that we can and we must protect without being violated and changed. There is an international treaty from 2024 protecting traditional knowledge, and I aim to, with certain international organizations, to inquire into this aspect. Now, I promise to be fast now, because I know we need to finish. I need to give you a few items relating to patents. I'm sure none of you ever even thought of patents created on the basis of the experiments made on the bodies of our families. But hey, there's plenty data. Plenty. Most of the data is still in storage in Auschwitz and in other ghettos. But patents were registered. I'm not talking about the patents for the ovens, and because there were patents that were tested in concentration camps. I'm talking about information, medical information, that was used in order to register patents, and information that belongs to someone. It all begins with Aryanization of patents. When the Reich took power, Jews that had patents had to put a German on the name of the patent holder, and that was an Aryanization process. This is one aspect, and then patents became more common. I'm sure it's famous, the hunger research in the Warsaw Ghetto, and plenty uses were made by the data and information. And look at it, these are articles from the recent years, 2022, 2024. There were books written on patents for Hitler, books written on the importance of using scientific knowledge accumulated in concentration camps. We all know about the hypothermia research in Dachau, and the angel of death, Mengele. Now, Mengele is a personal story. In a moment I'll get back to it because I needed a second, but Klauberg, the information, the data collected by Klaubergs, the monster Klauberg, was published recently in the 2022 edition of the Medical Review Auschwitz. I strongly encourage you to visit this medical review. They discuss the effectiveness of Klauberg experiments. Now, why do I have something personal? Because my auntie, Edka, I never understood why she loved me so much. And whenever we met in Pesach or in Rosh Hashanah, she used to ask me to come and be near her and to hug me. And my mom used to give me extra pocket money to do it. And I always loved doing it because I got pocket money, extra pocket money. Auntie Edka didn't have kids. She was part of Mengele's experiments. Eventually, she passed away because of her medical condition that was a result of the chemicals that were injected into her body. The Lancet report, the Lancet Commission was established published its report in 2023. It examined medicine, Nazism, and the Holocaust. And those of you who are interested in this, I strongly recommend you visit the website. But just to say a few words before I conclude, that the Lancet report shows how knowledge, scientific knowledge from concentration camps was utilized in so many different ways, including data that was used in aviation medicine after the war, and scientists connected to the experiments were recruited for the development of US space medicine, registered as patents. This is the last example. Anatomists were one of the most fortunate in the Holocaust because they had as many bodies as they wanted. The Dean of Vienna Medical School, Prof, published an atlas, the Prof Atlas, and all the sketches, all the paintings were on the basis of using our families' bodies from concentration camps. This atlas was in use until very recently, still in 2016, in medical sport. I think I can skip this, but just so you know, there are archives that hold certain brains from Jewish prisoners in concentration camps, including tissues of children's brains and bodies that were used in experiments. You can add more volume, just a bit. That brings me to the end of this presentation. I will continue with this research. I hardly know much, well, anything. I'm researching this for the past 25 years, and I still need to find more in order to make firm conclusions. But this is, or my research, is my own personal journey. These were members of my family. This is a research about my family and our families. The drive to inquire more about this is growing, and wherever I present it, sometimes I get more and more people with interest in advancing the research on the topic. Most of my family didn't survive. There are pages and pages in the Auschwitz book. But although I grew up in a family, in a suburb in Haifa, where every other person had a number on his head, or hand, or I learned to cherish the understanding and the importance of teaching Holocaust in intellectual property, in contract, in jurisprudence, and more courses. This is in loving memory of the families I never knew, the Zemer, Shikansky, Benny, Uziel, and Hanvager. But just before I let you go, it's also a victory. Although my grandparents didn't really become happy people, they made sure we become happy people. Remember, well, this is what's left from the family who came to Israel. My own little personal victory is this. Remember I told you about Anita Lasker-Wolfish, the sadist of Auschwitz? This is Jonathan. We went to her birthday in London for her 99th birthday. I was sure she'll be interested in me, but she had nothing to do with me. She was interested in him. And the reason why, do you remember Adel Haas, the composer from the Czech Republic? Jonathan is playing his musical pieces in the Israeli Conservatory. And will continue to play it until everyone hears what he has to say through music. Thank you so much.